Hello, everyone, and welcome to SPE Live. My name is Jay Stratton, and I'm your SPE co-chair to the technical program of the Unconventional Resources Technology Conference, also known as URTeC. The URTeC conference is being held this year in Houston from July 26th to the 28th. This will be the 9th year for the conference, having grown larger almost every year since its inception in 2013. Last year, we transitioned to a virtual online event, and this year, with COVID meeting restrictions lifted, we're planning a hybrid in-person event where folks can participate online as well. URTeC is the largest multidisciplinary technical meeting in the energy industry, with SPE, the AAPG, and SEG sponsoring, along with 8 endorsing organizations, key to our industry's technical advancements in energy. We're thrilled today to bring you a panel discussion of how the ever-changing energy landscape has impacted the scope and topics of URTeC and what is occurring technically in our industry to support a sustainable energy future. Please share your questions and comments on LinkedIn, and we hope to have time to answer some of those with our panel near the end of the show. Well, I'm excited today to be joined by 3 industry colleagues who have long been involved with URTeC and are leaders in vital technical advances occurring in our industry. First, with us is Katerina Yared, who holds the position of Senior Petrophysicist at SM Energy in Denver. Her career started as a field engineer focused on formation evaluation with Baker Hughes after she received her master's degree in geology from the RWTH Aachen University in Aachen, Germany. She advanced in a wide range of roles at Baker Hughes, eventually becoming geoscience manager for the U.S. Western region. Katerina broadened her experience by working for Neos Geosolutions in Colorado, and then before joining SM Energy, she was a petrophysicist at Apache Corporation and QEP Resources. Katerina is also the president of the International Society of Petrophysicists and Well Log Analysts, SPWLA. She is also a lifetime member of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, or SPE. Finally, and most important, she is the co-CEO of the Yared household, enjoying raising 3 young boys in Colorado. Also joining us is Scott Reeves, who is Executive Director, Subsurface Technology at the Gas Technology Institute, or GTI, where he has a responsibility for directing GTI's subsurface technology activities for unconventional reservoir development, CO2 storage, hydrogen production and storage, and enhanced geothermal systems. His experience includes 35 years in many technical and leadership roles, including with entrepreneurial consulting, government and institutional research organizations, domestic operating companies, a multinational production corporation, and a global integrated oil field service company. Scott holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Petroleum Engineering from Texas A&M University and an MBA from Duke University. He is a member of SPE and former SPE Distinguished Lecturer on the topic of enhanced coal bed methane recovery. Scott is a recipient of the Gulf Coast SPE Reservoir Engineering Award and has authored many trade magazine articles, papers, and presentations. He was also the United Nations Special Advisor to China on coal bed methane technology. Our third panelist is Doug Valleau, President of Strategia Innovation and Technology Advisors and Senior Vice President of Period Technologies. Doug works with industry, national labs, and universities to foster breakthrough innovations in geoscience and engineering for field development and EOR projects. He also represents Period Technologies at the University of Wyoming, the only facility in the world offering full reservoir condition, 3-phase core flood imaging, and testing at the macro, micro, nano, and atomic scales, something we've never conceived until unconventional resources became the next big thing. Earlier, Doug was Chief Geologist and Director of Unconventional Technology for Hess Corporation and has held management, geoscience, and engineering positions with several other domestic and multinational operators. His professional affiliations include AAPG, SPE, SEG, and many of the endorsing organizations of URTeC. Doug has published technical papers on a wide variety of topics and analytical processes, one of which was awarded a U.S. patent. Doug is also the current chairman of the URTeC Management Committee and member of the URTeC Industry Advisory Board and a member of our Technical Program Committee. Well, now that we know our all-star panelists, Katerina, Scott, and Doug, welcome to the talk.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Well, let's get to it. Let's start with Doug. Doug, you've been part of URTeC since its inception. What was the original vision of the conference, and what has made it such a huge success?
Yeah, so thanks, Jay. URTeC was, as you had mentioned, was born 2013 with a vision to create a integrated technical event uniting engineering, geoscience, and related disciplines. This vision was a joint project of SPE, AAPG, and SEG, and the 8 supporting organizations that you had mentioned. The focus of URTeC is on innovation and advancing the discovery, development, and production of challenged and unique resources in an efficient and economical manner with a focus on environmental stewardship. And the key thing that I believe distinguishes URTeC from other conventions around the globe is this integrated aspect. In fact, we've encouraged many of the people presenting technical papers to do it as an integration. That is, geologists, geophysicists, drillers, landman, ESG person, all participate in the presentation of the technical work. And I think that's what's made it a unique opportunity for people to come and participate.
Yeah, the aspect of multidisciplinary contributions. In fact, we even have some operators that are doing team presentations, which we strongly encourage. Has been one of the things that set URTeC apart. I know that many of the efficiencies in our industry, as far as exploiting unconventionals, has been as a result of geologists and drilling engineers and operations engineers and others pulling together all their resources and optimizing the exploitation of a very difficult resource to address. But thanks for that, Doug. I want to bring Katrina in with a question about her experiences and perspectives, particularly through SPWLA, which has been a large part of our foundational activity at URTeC.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Like Doug mentioned, URTeC kicked off the idea of combining different disciplines into the overall aspect of the reservoir characterization when it comes to unconventionals. Petrophysics being already multifaceted is part of the solution for sure, and SPWLA has been pretty much part of URTeC as well as an affiliated society for almost the very beginning of URTeC. And what we saw as an advantage there was not only that we got a visibility or increased visibility there for our society, but also that we started to talk to the other disciplines like the drillers, like the geologists, and also reservoir engineers that they will talk the same language basically now, right? So that's the common goal of URTeC, to have a platform where everybody comes in and contributes to the solution of cracking these unconventional reservoirs.
Thank you, Katerina. Scott, you've been involved with unconventionals for a long time. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience and how URTeC's been helpful in advancing, improving on that topic?
Sure, Jay. Thanks. So a little bit about my background. I graduated from Texas A&M as a young petroleum engineer in the ancient time of 1984, and into what I thought was going to be the worst industry downturn of my career. But I didn't know that what 2018, 2019, and 2020 had in store for us. But I ended up working for a small coal bed methane operator in the Black Warrior Basin of Alabama, and that was back in the late 70s and early 80s, was just the very, very beginnings of people starting to look at coal bed methane, pipe gas sands, and gas shales out in Appalachia. It's really shallow shales at that point in time. But there really wasn't a lot of, being so new, there wasn't a lot of conferences or anything like that. I think around that time, SPE started their pipe their tight gas symposium, which was held every other year in Denver, and then the University of Alabama started their coal bed methane symposium. But over the years, some of the regional conferences began to include sessions on, one of those particular resource types and things like that. And it gradually grew, and the annual conference, of course, came in, and AAPG and SEG were doing very similar things. But it really wasn't until URTeC came along that two things happened. Number one, the convergence and the integration of all the unconventional resources, coal bed methane, shales, tight sands, all of them kind of came together under one roof, and there's a lot of similarities in terms of challenges between them. They all have their differences, of course. So it really brought together all the unconventional resources into one conference. And as Doug and Katerina just mentioned, it also brought together the SEG and AAPG and SPE to kind of bring the multidisciplinary. So it really was an insightful,
that's true,
and a forward thinking. So.
Yeah, I believe URTeC basically kicked off the idea of having multidisciplinary teams. At the very beginning, we, especially bigger operators, had siloed, disciplined teams, and with the unconventional, the problems were so complicated that a single discipline will not be able to survive on their own. So URTeC kicked off the idea of having interdisciplinary approaches to the reservoir characterization of unconventionals, and I think this really started a change in the momentum of our industry as a whole when it comes to unconventional resources. Like Scott said, coal bed methane was probably one of the first worldwide too, but then the shale revolution here in the US definitely asked and longed for a multidisciplinary approach. So.
Yeah,
I think there's still sorry, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was going to further comment on what Katerina just said, that actually it may not have been directly from URTeC, but if you look at a number of companies that are in the unconventional space now, you'll discover that they've many times reorganized their internal team structures in a multidisciplinary way. So now you actually have unconventional teams within private companies that are multidisciplinary, which is fantastic that we're starting to break down the silos.
I think we lost Jay.
I think we lost Jay.
Well, in that sense, though, not only for the multidisciplinary approach, but then also in terms of energy transition that we're all facing these days, again, a multidisciplinary approach is definitely needed. Again, it's a new problem, but when it comes to aligning the thought process there on a new problem, you definitely need a multidisciplinary approach again for that. And at the SPWLA this year, for example, at our symposium, which was a virtual one, we had a workshop on energy transition just to mainly show that how our knowledge and know-how of unconventionals definitely can fit perfectly into the system of the energy transition and renewable resources.
Yes, indeed. In fact, I would comment that URTeC this year, in its opening plenary session, which tends to set the tone for the entire conference, that we're tackling the current challenges facing our industry today. We're going to have an opening session actually entitled The Energy Transition. And we're going to have 4 preeminent speakers who will discuss the global energy situation and how producing companies are addressing issues of climate change, the way ESG is being viewed by the investor community, and what impact it's had on the boardrooms of various companies, and what latest technological themes could help deliver production in an environmentally sensitive way, but also in a positive cash flow way as well. So if I were to put in a shameless plug for the URTeC this year in the opening session, our plenary panel of speakers will include Dr. Scott Tinker from the BEG, Vicky Holub, the CEO and president of Occidental Petroleum, Dr. Bob Brackett, who is an eminent financial analyst with Bernstein Research, and Jeremy Sweek, who is a managing director and co-founder of Darcy Partners. So,
yeah, and kind of along those lines, Doug. One of the other themes that's going to take place at URTeC this year is the hydraulic fracturing test sites. So the HFTS program, as we call it, consists of 2 sites in the Permian Basin, consisting of 8 to 12 wells each. The first was in the Midland Basin, which began in 2015 and is now entering phase 3, and the second HFTS project is in the Delaware Basin that started operations in 2018, and we're just completing phase 1. The objectives of the HFTS program, and the reason I'm describing this is that there's going to be a special session related to the HFTS program at this year's URTeC. But the objectives of the program are obviously to improve recovery factors from the 10 to 20%, pick a number that you currently get today, to improve capital efficiency, but also to improve recoveries, requiring fewer new wells to be drilled from an environmental perspective. It is a DOE industry partnership with DOE since 2015 has contributed on the order of $29 million to the program. And industry has matched that. We have 26 industry members that have contributed $53 million of science and diagnostics to that. The sites are basically highly instrumented sites with all kinds of diagnostics to understand hydraulic fracture growth, as well as testing new diagnostics. And one of the really interesting parts of the program is the drilling of a core well through the stimulated rock volume. And so we've drilled so far 3 of those with very interesting results in terms of what actually looks like the fractures in the subsurface actually look like. And we'll be drilling a fourth later this year at the phase 3 site for HFTS1. And the other really interesting thing is the utility of fiber optics for understanding both fracture growth as well as depletion. And at HFTS2, we have actually 2 permanent fiber optic horizontal wells and 1 vertical well. And it's shown some actually remarkable insights into both fracture growth as well as depletion. And typically the data from these projects are held confidential for a couple of years, but relevant to this discussion here today, as I said, there'll be 5 separate 5-part sessions on HFTS2 data and results, which will be presented in public for the first time. So it's going to be a very, very interesting session. We did this on HFTS1 a few years ago, and had a very good industry response, and it was very interesting. So I'd really like to, as Doug said, I'm giving that a shameless plug here on this platform. So thank you for the opportunity to mention that. But it should be very interesting, and I would highly encourage those of you who can be there in person. It will be an in-person session, but it will also be an online session as well, so others can attend as well if they can't get there in person. So look forward to that.
Scott, and sorry about dropping off there, folks. I had some technical difficulties, obviously, but I'm glad to be back. Had a question about HFTS1, Scott. You mentioned that data is confidential for a time, but has HFTS1 data become available for a broader audience?
Yeah, much of it has, and it kind of we release the information kind of on an annual basis. It's not a continuous basis, on an annual basis, but the The phase 1 data is from HFTS1, which was the diagnostic on the hydraulic fracture, is now available. You can actually get it on the EDX website. It's the DOE Data Exchange website, an EDX website. And for the phase 2 at HFTS1 was an EOR test, and that data should become available later this year. So yes, Jay, it should be there, and it's just a matter of you'll have to just Google the exact. I don't remember the exact address for the EDX site, but or send me a note, and I can lead you to it.
Sure. Great. You mentioned some of the application specific technologies that are useful to operators immediately, like HFTS and those that are participating. We also have strong operator sessions, with multidisciplinary teams from geophysics and geology and engineering and others. This year, I just want to mention at URTeC, ConocoPhillips has a very strong operational presence. They've actually put together over 17 technical presentations. 2 of those are going to be comprised of special sessions. One's going to be technical, and another special session is going to feature their management team and a panel discussion. And we have just a great roster of folks from ConocoPhillips. Michael Hatfield, their chief technology officer, will be there. Ed Conley, global production manager for ConocoPhillips. David Forbes is the general manager for global wells. Jack Harper's president of the Permian for ConocoPhillips, and Wendy King, who is the vice president of Gulf Coast business for ConocoPhillips. They'll all be there participating in a panel discussion. So it's going to be an exciting time to kind of hear about what they're doing as a company in some of the areas that we're all interested in and operating in. So I think that, I don't know, Katerina, if you'd be able to talk about some of the challenges relevant to SPWLA as it pertains to URTeC and activity that your organization's been involved with, or you individually. Can you share some of your insights on those issues?
Yeah, sure. URTeC, and like I mentioned before, is a platform with all these disciplines coming together, and it was pretty much a no-brainer for SPWLA to be part of it, and we gained a lot of understanding from the different disciplines as well. And for example, what Scott mentions, the HFTS sites, those were like a big lab out there for us to learn and contribute to, and provide knowledge that might have been missed before, just because the knowledge or awareness of the specialty of the petrophysicists and well log analysts out there was not available. But with this platform that URTeC provided, we definitely connected with the other disciplines and were able to bring this dynamic solutions to the table, and as well these interdisciplinary approaches to the various problems out there, not only in the Permian, but in other unconventional shale plays too. And I think that's what kicked off our URTeC's view into the world too, that other countries like Latin America, we had URTeC Latin America as well this year, that went very well. And again, this brings the solutions to the table just by open discussions and having these HFTS sites, again, where a lot of money gets invested into science, but also the discussions around them. I think that was one thing that really got me to attend URTeC every year, pretty much from the beginning. This definitely brought a lot of value to us, but also a lot of understanding from which we could learn and kick off our ideas, here, for example, at SM Energy too, just by understanding, okay, people have tried this, we can try it as well. A lot of methodologies go from the lessons learned that we got from URTeC. So for me, for sure, this conference is something that I will never want to miss, just because it's something that we never would get to see otherwise, just because there is a knowledge sharing that is, not only interdisciplinary, but also the discussions around it help a lot.
Absolutely.
Jay,
ahead,
can I add to what Katerina has just commented on? One of the things I'm really proud about at URTeC over the years, when we first started in 2013, operating companies were reluctant to come and present, for various reasons, competitive advantage and all sorts of things. But over the years, more and more operating companies have realized that because this is such a complex issues with these challenged reservoirs that and the multidisciplinary aspect, that every year we're seeing more and more operating companies like ConocoPhillips, who is doing a special session, come forward and actually show their latest and greatest, because they now realize that sharing of the information just lifts the boat, all boats in the ocean. So, I have a shout out to companies like ConocoPhillips and Occidental Petroleum and Pioneer and Shell. They're all putting in multiple technical papers and presentations. So I just like to shout out to all the operating companies that are coming and sharing information to help everybody.
Absolutely. It's just one of the important parts of URTeC. I'd like to pivot with some of the time we have left to some of the changes that have occurred over the years, and really looking at URTeC and how it can be relevant in a resource to meet tomorrow's energy needs. We know about the great transitions going on in our industry, and I was thinking maybe, Scott, you could kick us off with talking about some of the decarbonization transitions and other things that GTI is working on and how that could be relevant.
Yeah, that's something we think a lot about at GTI, the competing priorities of a lower carbon energy future, but yet keeping energy affordable, specifically and mainly for developing economies and what have you, and not burden them with high energy costs. But yeah, so we work along along the whole value chain in terms of how do you create the hydrogen, for example, how do you store carbon, things like that. But as I think about URTeC and specifically around unconventional resources and what we can do in this space in relation to the energy transition is, how can we repurpose some of these older wells? In the Permian Basin, for example, there's 60,000 horizontal wells, most of which have been drilled, prior to 7-8 years ago, and that are producing very little. And so, how can we repurpose these wells? And a couple of thoughts that we have are around, carbon storage. Can they be used as carbon storage wells? CO2 storage wells be converted? There's a lot of questions around whether that's feasible or not, but that's one thought that we've had. And then in maybe some of the deeper and hotter plays, like the Haynesville, for example, where temperatures get upwards of 300 degrees, can we somehow use those as enhanced geothermal wells? We've got connectivity between wells caused by frac hits and what have you. And so can they somehow be repurposed for that? And so those are some of the things that we think about. It's just, and URTeC, in as much as they can foster some of those discussions and developing of those ideas, I think would be very beneficial.
Absolutely. And URTeC has, in the past couple of years, has expanded, some of their sessions to include ESG topics and others that are important to operators these days. Katerina, I noticed that SPWLA actually had a workshop on petrophysics' role in the energy transition. Can you share some thoughts about how SPWLA at URTeC may be able to address some of these changing issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So in that workshop, we focused on geothermal and CCUS, just because the tools that are at hand for those evaluation of those resources is pretty much what we're using on a daily basis. But because they have been out of the spotlight for so many years, they're still dealing with drilling and other tools from the 80s and approaches from the 80s. So just knowledge sharing again. This is the platform to do that. URTeC is, and I think the the advantages that we can provide to these new energy resources in contributing to a smooth transition of energies is definitely something that needs to happen, and also that will, bring us back to a level plane with industries that have been maybe not been visible for so long, but we have the tools and we have the techniques to approach geothermal and CCUS, challenges on a higher level, and I think that's what combines us with the other energy resources out there.
Absolutely. Doug, I'd like to give you the final word on our changing URTeC and our focus and what we can do to be relevant in the future. If you could share with us that final word.
Well, great. So what I'd say for folks, why go to URTeC? Well, URTeC program consists of not just deep technical presentations, but they also provide panel discussions on cutting edge ideas. There are topical presentations from industry leaders. Obviously, as with many conventions, there's an exhibition hall with the latest and greatest. As a geologist, many of the technical themes are fully integrated with geoscience, engineering, and related disciplines. But as the geologist on the panel, I'd say that the things that get me excited is as you mentioned before, the operators forum. And this is where the oil companies can come in with their teams and highlight all the key learnings that and share those learnings with the rest of the audience. There's a geological characterization theme, which focuses on understanding the structural and depositional processes and what the emerging tools are and workflows. SPWA is significantly in that part, and it also integrates the data analytics and the artificial intelligence aspects that are coming into the industry. The geophysical evaluation platform we have is certainly focused on quantifying the completion efficiency, the rock property prediction, and productivity prediction. And obviously we have a geochemical theme, which is highlighting how do you actually identify the sweet spots and fluid mobility in these ultra-tight reservoirs. And to round it off, we have a business of unconventionals, which is focused on how can you best deliver value, make money out of these tight rocks in a environmentally sensitive way. So that's my shameless plug for why you should come to URTeC.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, and I think we all realize that we still play a major part of providing energy for our world in a cheap, reliable way, and we'll continue to do that, and hopefully URTeC can be part of those changes as we move forward. I'd like to thank the panel, Doug and Katerina and Scott, for joining us today, and SPE Live for creating the forum for us to just talk about URTeC. And just like to mention again that URTeC is occurring July 26th to the 28th later this month. So feel free to register. You have an online registration available if you can't make it physically. So it's a hybrid event this year. So that will be a wrap for us. Again, thank everyone for joining. I hope that you found some interesting information that was presented. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.